Hi everyone, this is part 2 of my political discussion, and I just want to start with some of the ideas that I couldn't get to in the last video just because of time. I didn't want it to go on that long. So in this video I want to talk about education, the drug war, energy, terrorism war, and IT security. So we're looking here at democratichub.com, listing of issues, and I think these topics that I just mentioned are very, very important, but I think the way we're talking about them is not very smart. So let's just get straight to it. Education. Is everybody entitled to a free education? I would say almost. So what we have right now in the public education system is deplorable. It's the system is designed for people to fail. The teachers, and I've taught, literally have to fight to get anything done that's good. They have to fight the system. The system forces them to do a lot of really stupid stuff. It prevents them from doing a lot of good stuff. And while I'm not going to go into it, I will, I guess, give an idea of what I think the education system should look like. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that education is very important, because if the people get education, they improve not only their lives but tax revenue as well. So by empowering people with education, we're empowering our economy. We're empowering our people to be able to work for a living instead of having to get assistance and things like that. That really the best way to solve a money problem is through increasing wages, and the best way to increase wages is to increase experience and education. So with that in mind, we really should be thinking about how experience can be integrated into education. But this is how I see the education, the way it should be run, and not like the current system we have, or any current system we have. Teachers should be paid according to their demand for their services, and they should be allowed to sell any kind of service they want, including, and they should not be allowed to do every service at once. Testing, teaching, tutoring, these should all be very separate services that teachers offer. They should have an Amazon style marketplace for them to sell what they do and be rated upon what they do. And so teachers that are exceptionally good at creating tests will have other teachers that need those tests to pay money for their tests, and so they'll earn their living by basically selling their tests to other teachers. And so the best tests created in the entire United States will be primarily bought by all the rest of the teachers. So people who are really good at tests will have that knowledge and those abilities shared with the entire nation, so you don't have to reduplicate the efforts, and everybody gets the highest quality test, the test that everybody wants to buy. Those teachers that are really good at teaching, they should be allowed to teach, but they should not be allowed to test, because if they test, then they're going to test according to the way they teach. So they shouldn't be designing their own curriculum, because then they're going to teach according to their own curriculum. So teachers will be buying curriculum designed by other teachers that are really good at creating curriculum. And then those teachers creating the curriculum, they get paid a lot of money if they're really good. Obviously not everybody's going to be creating curriculum, but those who are good will give us the best curriculum possible, or at least the best for the price that we're willing to pay. So there'll be a marketplace. Teachers that are really good at teaching, they'll be teaching, and not necessarily every single hour of the day. They'll be choosing the students that they want into their classrooms, and freely able to expel students if the student doesn't show an interest or an inclination, or is simply not working with that teacher. The teacher should be allowed to expel the student from their class. The student should be allowed to leave the class and get another class. And obviously the schools will have the ability to test the students no matter what class they're in. They'll have the same tests, because the schools will be choosing the test most likely. Not necessarily the teachers. because obviously the school wants to be accredited, and so they're going to want to use tests that are really, really good. And so the student will be able to continue their education with another teacher. And if the student has a hard time finding teachers that like them, or finding teachers that they like, that they can stick with, then they're going to have to, basically, they're going to have to take care of their education on their own. And so they'll have teachers that will be handling discipline, where they'll be in discipline classes, kind of like in-school suspension type classes, where basically they'll be watched over by teachers whose job is nothing other than to simply babysit and make sure that the students have an environment that they can learn on their own and they can do their work on their own. And so there will be assigned work by teachers that all they have to do is basically give work to the students that can't manage the rest of the teachers. And then teachers that are really good at discipline and maintaining a very strict classroom will be handling those students. And then so those students, their money will be going to the teachers that handle discipline, and they'll be getting their needs met on learning discipline. Learning discipline is as important as learning math. So that's definitely an important thing to be taught. So yeah, a marketplace that involves all aspects of education. Schools will be buying principals that are really good at being principals for the price that the principals want to charge. So every teacher will be able to charge what they want for their services, and it'll be up to the parents to decide what it is that they want. How much are they willing to spend for a teacher? And it may turn out that they can spend, a tenth of the price of one teacher and get comparable education. So the marketplace will balance itself out. There are a lot of good teachers out there. So, all right, we've got a system in place for education. Now we need to discuss, I guess, what kind of education we need to give to the citizenship, to the citizenry. So I'm believing that government is responsible for education and even continuing education. So I think that the government should be providing a certain amount, and I'm not going to say how much, of money towards education. And basically they'll be paying for a certain level of education for both students, for children and adults. So an adult may want to get another certification, right, for their career. Then they'll have the power to take some government money and apply it to a certification. They'll basically pay for a teacher, and that teacher will pay for the curriculum, and they'll basically be able to get the certification. They'll have to pay for the testing and so forth. Obviously, it's a very, very new system that nobody's doing. It does not exist out there, so it requires a bit of thought and actually putting it together. But the idea of a free market where education actually meets people's needs, and you don't just learn something that you're never going to use later on in life, I think is something that we really need to be thinking about. Teachers getting paid for things they're good at, and not doing the entire, not doing all education. Some teachers are really good at teaching, and they're not good at test making or test administering. And sometimes they don't want to administer a test. I know I didn't want to administer tests. It's boring for me, not boring for other people. Just like being a librarian may be boring for a lot of people and not boring for librarians, right? So we all have our individual interests and abilities where we're naturally good at. So we really do need to capture on that. So that's education. It was huge. The drug war, I'll say this. Felonies really need to focus on actions which destroy society, destroy others. The use of drugs is not necessarily part of that. The use of drugs may lead to that, and inasmuch as we give people free passes for taking drugs by saying they took drugs so they weren't in control of themselves, and we're not going to hold them to the full accountability of the law, I think is absolutely wrong. The choice to take the drug is the choice to accept whatever consequences come from that drug. So After enough times of getting slapped with huge jail sentences for doing bad things, a person is eventually going to realize, hey, these drugs are messing me up. I need to stop this. I need to tell everyone else to not do it. Whatever the case is, our war needs to be not on drugs, but on the criminal actions behind it. There are some drugs that really hurt you, but there are a lot of things you can do to hurt yourself. Okay, taking cocaine is it's going to mess you up. It can mess you up for life, right? It could totally destroy your life for the rest of your life, but so could chopping off your own head. Okay, or shooting your brains out. Yeah, that'll mess you up for life too. Okay, especially if you survive. So there are things we can do to hurt ourselves a lot, and drugs is just one of them. It's one of those things where I really do not think we need to make anything to do with drugs illegal. What we need to do is make the actions associated with that illegal. So is it illegal to commit suicide? Yes. And so if taking a drug is suicide, then we need to prosecute that. Is it illegal for you to cut off your own arm? Well, if it isn't, it probably should be. So hurting yourself and not killing yourself, like with drugs, I think should be illegal. Definitely hurting someone else is illegal. I really think it should apply to ourselves. And then that comes to our argument of euthanasia. And should it be allowed for us to be able to engage in a very well thought out process of deciding whether or not killing ourselves or hurting ourselves is actually good. And if there is a process whereby we can decide that, hey, yeah, it's time for me to let go of my own life, I think we should allow for that process. And allow for a process where we have access to people who can talk to us about the consequences of decisions and better ways. We can stand to lose a whole lot by making rash decisions, whereas if we're empowered by understanding things from a better perspective, we can really get help to avoiding those losses. So small cost in the beginning of access to mental health people, psychologists, versus big costs of not allowing access to that, of people going insane and shooting up a school because they didn't have access to the resources they needed at an earlier stage. Small costs save us from big costs. It always works. Okay, so that's the drug war, and actually touched also on preventative costs of also dealing with mental health and things like that. Energy. So there are smart things we need to be doing with energy, including nuclear. There are things that we have with regulations that are driving the cost of nuclear through the roof. I think we do need to have safety, but we can have that without spending exorbitant amounts of money or being super scared about the nuclear option. We do need nuclear energy. The war on terrorism. If we can get people to come to us and admit that they want to be terrorists, I say, hey, put them in jail. Should we be going after every bad guy in the world? No. There are a lot of bad guys in the world. So it's not our job to go and find all the bad guys. There's almost the entire world are bad guys. They're all over the place. We do not need to be policing the world, as it's called. But if there are people who will admit, hey, we are all about destroying America, let's just say it's a terrorist group, and they say we're about destroying America and we happen to know where they are, yeah, we can go after them. I think we should. They may not walk up to our door and hand themselves in, but they'll admit it. Okay? Or maybe they might show evidence that really we need to evaluate the evidence to make sure that, hey, is this really legit? And if it is, if they're serious, yeah, we need to prosecute them. And not just terrorists. Anybody that indicates that they might want to destroy America or hurt America to a substantial degree, we need to put it before criminal consideration. Alright, let's see, last one, IT security. We've got hackers out there, and we need to protect not just the government, but businesses and people. This is kind of a preventative thing. So if we can prevent terrorist attacks that compromise our information, we can have a free trade system that we can trust. Where I trust your identity, I trust that you're not a criminal, I trust that my information will not be used against me, things like that. These are all very, very important for our liberties and for our economy. So yeah, we need IT security, and we need systems in place that leverage the talent of our IT security resources in the nation to protect everyone at once. I know we're not doing that. The FBI does have some programs in place that try to get businesses to consult with each other, or the IT professionals to share information about what's going on, but that only helps protect the government and businesses to a limited degree on knowing that there are bad things out there. It's not nearly enough. We need systems in place to help people to have strong passwords on every account, different on every account. There are things that we can do to help people do that for a very small cost. And in turn, the value that we'll get from that will probably pay for itself, and people being able to be productive and efficient and work well. Economy being able to take off because trust is so much bigger. The costs associated with an economy going down very quickly. You'd be surprised what can happen with an economy if it can function efficiently. Alright, so those are the 4 things I wanted to talk about. 1, 2, 4, 5 things. Thanks for listening. I hope you got some interesting ideas. I hope you noticed I am trying to keep it short. I was actually trying to use this list to I guess identify some of these topics, but I'd actually identified them before, and I was actually thinking about using it to kind of go through and see if any other topics or issues that we might want to address or talk about. But that really didn't work out in this video, as you can tell. But I hope you got some good ideas, and I'd like to hear your feedback in the comments below. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.